A courtroom on a Friday morning on August 7th. After 13 hours of deliberation, a man in dark glasses stands in the dock. The foreman reads the word guilty 6 times. That moment was 7 years in the making. It was how most people first learned the name Simon Levy. Almost no one in the public gallery knew the history behind it. The verdict answered one question: what did Simon Levy do? The evidence settled that beyond doubt. But it opened a far harder question: how was a man like this still free to do it? Levy was 40 years old. He had been known to the criminal justice system since 2018. He was convicted, imprisoned, released, recalled, released again, and monitored on paper the entire time. Yet in the space of 5 months in 2025, 2 women were killed. Their names were Carmenza, Valencia-Trujillo, and Sheryl Wilkins. 3 separate agencies would later admit that they got it wrong. To understand how, the story goes back to 2018. There were no cameras outside the courthouse then. There were no headlines or public reckonings. There was just a case file, and soon after, another one. 2 women were sexually assaulted by the same man in a year when no one was tracking him yet. A conviction finally came in September 2021, and Levy went to prison. While inside, he attacked a prison officer. That second conviction should have been the turning point. From that day, Levy was a registered sex offender. Any release would come with strict supervision and officers assigned to track his movements. He was released on license in February 2023. 8 months later, he groped a woman on the London Underground. By May 2024, he was accused of rape and recalled to prison. By August, he was out again. To the authorities, each incident landed on a desk as an isolated event. It was a form to fill, a decision to make, or a file to close. No one was watching the pattern build. He was arrested in November 2024 over 4 sexual assaults on the tube. Setting up an identification parade took time. While officers arranged it, he walked free. Between March and May 2025, 6 more women were attacked across the transport network. That made 10 victims in total over 19 months. His defense argued that the train carriages were packed. He also claimed that impaired vision from an earlier attack caused accidental contact. A jury at Inner London Crown Court rejected the claim. Levy had also missed 3 prior hearings in that case, citing illness and a lack of notice. The Crown Prosecution Service accepted those excuses without evidence. That trial coincided directly with the rest of the timeline. While those train assaults occurred, his name was linked to a murder inquiry. An untouched January rape allegation lay dormant. At the same time, probation officers routinely visited his home, where he claimed he rarely left the house. The British Transport Police held the transit attacks. The Metropolitan Police held the murder inquiry. A third file contained the January rape. Nobody was looking at all 3 at once. On 21 January 2025, Levy raped a woman on Tottenham High Road and suffocated her until she lost consciousness. Her collarbone was broken. She survived and reported the crime. However, when she came forward, officers detained her over an unrelated community order breach. Her case stalled. She had misstated the date, there was no usable CCTV, and her housing situation made her hard to reach. Police have since acknowledged all 3 failures. None of them were her fault. In practice, her file lay still until 2 more women were dead. 17 March 2025. Carmenza Valencia-Trujillo was found dead in a stairwell of a largely abandoned block on the Aylesbury estate in Walworth. She was 54 years old, originally from Colombia, and became a grandmother the year before. Those who knew her described a warm, vibrant woman who loved to dance salsa. The post-mortem could not establish her cause of death. Roughly 2 weeks later, police arrested Levy on suspicion of her murder. Without a conclusive cause of death, prosecutors could not charge him. Officers released him under investigation, while detectives continued working the case in the background. That single decision to release him sat at the center of the subsequent review. It was not the only failure, nor was it the last chance authorities had to stop him. In May 2025, and again in June, Levy stood before magistrates at Highbury Corner. On both occasions, the court did not remand him. The court knew his record. He was a convicted sex offender under active supervision. He had been arrested months earlier on suspicion of murder, and he faced a growing pile of sexual assault allegations across the transport network. Yet after both hearings, he walked out the door. The Metropolitan Police later stated that failing to remand him at those 2 hearings left him free to kill again. In the early hours of 24 August 2025, CCTV cameras captured Levy walking along Tottenham High Road with 39-year-old Sheryl Wilkins, a mother of 4. The cameras tracked them into a nearby car park. They walked behind a wall and disappeared out of frame. No one else entered after them. A short time later, Levy walked out alone. Officers found Sheryl Wilkins in that car park later that morning. It was the exact location where Levy had raped and suffocated another woman 7 months earlier. He suffocated Sheryl Wilkins using the same method he used on Carmenza Valencia-Trujillo 5 months prior. Both killings were sexually motivated, and prosecutors later noted that both victims were left in strikingly similar positions. That physical evidence reshaped the March investigation. On its own, Carmenza Valencia-Trujillo's death lacked a clear cause and momentum. Combined with the August murder, the connection became unmistakable. This time, the charges held. Police arrested Levy in September 2025 and charged him with Sheryl Wilkins's murder on 7 September. That same day, prosecutors charged him with the rape and strangulation of the January survivor. Detectives reassessed every open file, connecting his name to all 3 cases. On 19 November 2025, authorities charged him with the murder of Carmenza Valencia-Trujillo. 3 investigations that had operated on separate tracks for a year merged into a single prosecution. The path to trial remained chaotic. Levy was scheduled to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on 25 November to be formally charged over the March murder. He failed to appear, refusing to attend in person or via video link from prison. The hearing proceeded in his absence, and the case was sent to the Old Bailey the following day. There, he pleaded not guilty to all charges: 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of rape, grievous bodily harm, and intentional suffocation. The court set a trial date for June. The trial opened at the Old Bailey in June 2026 before Judge Mark Lucraft KC. It ran for 5 weeks. The prosecution's case was simple to state and devastating to hear. These were not unconnected crimes committed by a man who happened to be nearby. They were one continuous, escalating pattern. Different victims who never knew each other were attacked months and miles apart. The same man, the same method, and the same motive tied every assault together. Jurors watched the CCTV footage. They saw 2 figures walking north on Tottenham High Road, followed by 1 figure walking back alone. They examined the forensic evidence connecting him to Carmenza Valencia-Trujillo's death. They also heard testimony from the survivor of the January attack. She holds lifetime legal anonymity. She reported her assault immediately, only to be taken into custody herself over an unrelated matter. She then watched the investigation stall for months. 19 months later, she stood in Court 1 and told the jury what Levy had done to her. Levy's defense claimed the sexual contact was consensual and denied that he killed anyone. He did not deny being in the car park or in the stairwell on the Aylesbury estate. He simply argued that neither death was his responsibility. He never took the stand. The jury heard nothing from him directly, only the overwhelming evidence surrounding him. On 7 August 2026, after 13 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. Levy stood in the dock wearing dark glasses. He had worn them since losing sight in one eye in 2024. A district judge had previously permitted him to keep them on during a hearing at Highbury Corner, where he was also allowed to remain seated after claiming he could not stand. The foreman read the verdicts: guilty of murdering Carmenza Valencia-Trujillo, guilty of murdering Sheryl Wilkins, guilty of 2 counts of rape, guilty of grievous bodily harm with intent, and guilty of the intentional suffocation of the surviving victim. In the public gallery, the victims' families wept as the guilty verdicts were read one after another. The judge remanded Levy straight back into custody. Murder carries a mandatory life sentence, with the exact minimum term scheduled for determination at his sentencing on 12 August. Outside the court, Detective Chief Inspector Neil John stood alongside Sheryl Wilkins' two sisters and Carmenza Valencia-Trujillo's daughter. He commended the family's dignity throughout the 5-week trial. He spoke of the survivor's bravery, noting that her evidence ensured Levy would spend most, if not all, of his remaining life in prison. DCI John described the investigation's findings as a pattern of escalating sexual violence. He then issued a public appeal for further victims across Haringey and Southwark, operating on the working assumption that these charges do not represent the full extent of Levy's crimes. London's Victims Commissioner, Andrea Simon, offered a direct condemnation. She stated she was appalled by the litany of systemic failures that allowed a dangerous offender to remain free. For the families, the courtroom battle is over. For the justice system, the public reckoning is just beginning. The Metropolitan Police, the British Transport Police, and the Crown Prosecution Service have all admitted they got parts of this case wrong. The Independent Office for Police Conduct is investigating those failures. That review began in January 2026, after the Metropolitan Police voluntarily referred 2 of its own officers. The scope of the investigation spans 4 years, from Levy's first conviction in September 2021 to his final arrest in September 2025. Investigators served a gross misconduct notice to 1 police constable. They served a misconduct notice to a detective sergeant. Neither notice guarantees disciplinary proceedings, nor do they constitute a formal finding of wrongdoing. That legal distinction matters. The watchdog is asking 3 fundamental questions. Could anything have stopped Levy from reoffending? Did the officers managing him follow their established protocols? If they followed the rules, do those rules themselves need to change? Laid out chronologically, the sequence of events remains difficult to comprehend. A conviction in 2021, release on license in 2023, reoffending within months, recall to prison, followed by another release. An arrest over 4 transit assaults, followed by freedom while officers arranged an identification parade. 6 more assaults after that. Then came the institutional breakdowns. A woman raped in January reported the crime immediately, only for the system to lose her file. A woman was found dead in March, leading to an arrest that yielded no charges because no one could establish a cause of death. Courts had 2 separate chances in May and June to remand him, and missed both. In August, a second woman was killed in the exact car park where the January rape occurred. Every decision was made by an official holding only a fragment of the broader picture. The trial verdict officially settled what Simon Levy did. That outcome is now a matter of public record. What the institutional reviews must determine is whether any of this was preventable. No jury will ever rule on that question. That responsibility now sits with watchdog investigators and 3 agencies examining their own choices. Whatever they conclude cannot bring Carmenza Valencia-Trujillo or Sheryl Wilkins back. It will only determine whether the justice system genuinely learns from its failures or simply closes another case file. Levy will be sentenced on 12 August. The independent investigation remains ongoing. When the court publishes its sentencing remarks and the watchdog releases its findings, the full official record will finally be clear.